Hello and welcome to Behind the Scenes, podcast where we explore the intersection of art, culture, and big ideas. I'm your host, Sean Malone, the creative director for the Foundation for Economic Education and the creator of Out of Frame, a video essay series on YouTube. Here with me today, as usual, is Jennifer Maffasanti, who's the director of communications at the Libertas Institute in Utah. And of course, our senior marketing manager, Paul Nelson. Paul just had a new baby. How are you doing with that, Paul? Like, how's the new baby treating you?
Everyone's happy and healthy. We're getting sleep where we can. This is our third kid, and it's going from 2 to 3 is a jump. You're no longer, I mean, this is everyone. I've always heard this. You go from a man-to-man defense to a zone defense. And I don't even feel like it's that. I'm not, I don't know. It's just,
you're officially outnumbered.
It's not a linear progression of difficulty.
No,
it's an exponential curve.
Right. Like adding your first, boom, you're up in difficulty level of life quickly. 2, not really. I mean, it's just, you add in another one, you already know what you're doing. It's, one parent takes the other, adding a third. Big changes have to be made. We had to get a different car. We have to figure out room situations. We no longer can be like hanging out one-on-one easily, where there's going to be somebody else in the room. But we're all figuring it out. Our boys, the oldest 5 and 3, they're doing well. They're doing much better than I expected, because it's a big change for such young people. But they love their new little sister, and a lot of adorable moments have already happened, and it's pretty sweet to see them already become pretty protective of her, which is just interesting to see.
That's awesome, man. That's really good. And I mean, you do live like a lot closer to your wife's parents, right? Like, they're kind of around.
So we're just a few minutes down the road from them, but we've had some. The last few weeks have been pretty interesting in the Nelson household. My wife's grandfather passed away just a few days after our baby was born, and we've also had to put our family dog down. Ugh. She had lymphoma. And so it's been the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. So it's been a rough couple of weeks, but thankfully everything, at least with the pregnancy, has gone well, and baby and mom are healthy and happy, and we're getting more sleep. We're trying.
Good. It's been kind of I feel like it's been a weird time a little bit at FEE right now, because everybody, like, you were out for a couple weeks, and then, a number of our other team members were out, and then I was out because I think I talked about this on the last podcast that I was on, but, my wife and I bought a house, and we had been slowly sort of renovating aspects of it and doing things that we needed to do to move in. But then not this past week, but the week before was our last final push. And then just about 8 days ago, we started actually moving in, which was pretty crazy. And then I immediately got on a plane to go to Los Angeles. Fortunately, Jen was also in Los Angeles.
Yes, I was.
So that was
for at least some of that time, not the whole time.
Yeah, I was there from Tuesday through Saturday, and Jen, you got there on Thursday, I think. But
yeah.
But so it was pretty nuts, and I don't really recommend this as a thing, as like a strategy in life. If I could have scheduled the event that I was attending any other time, I probably would have chosen not to do that right after 2 days worth of moving, and then just like the incredible stress that I've had the last few months. But it was actually a really good time. We attended an event sort of put on by one of the groups in our network called the Atlas Network, which is a cool international organization. And Jen and I ended up getting together for their one of their sort of video production programs where I was speaking, and Jen attended the conference and whatever. But the cool thing is Jen and I got to go see the movie that we're talking about today together in a theater in person, like real human beings together seeing a film. So we went to a lovely AMC dine-in and saw Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Yep.
Which
I have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
about your theater experience. So you were in California.
Yep.
Did you have to wear masks to the theater?
We did not.
No.
Now, to be clear, we were in Manhattan Beach. But that said, I think Los Angeles County overall had, just as of maybe the week earlier or something like that, reduced some of its mask requirements. So there's still masks in Lyfts and Ubers and all public transit and all that kind of stuff, which we did have to wear. And then, I probably wore a mask more. I definitely wore a mask more just on the airplane and in airports on my way to and from there than I have in the last 2 years solid, which is pretty wild. But yeah, I mean, there were some things like, Jen and I went to dinner at a Brazilian place. And I was actually asked for a vaccine card. We were rejected. Oh wait. Yeah.
No. That was just to sit inside.
That was to sit inside.
We didn't need it.
We weren't
need it if we were sitting outside.
Right. We weren't rejected, but if we were sitting inside, they wanted to see vaccine cards, which was the first time I've ever encountered that because I don't live in California or have to deal with such things.
Did you give them the old, here's my vaccine card right here?
No. No, we're just like, well, guess we're sitting outside.
Guess we're sitting outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Second question. You mentioned it was an AMC dine-in theater.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I know Jen likes to eat food with her movies.
I do. I also do.
I don't, but I just want to know, did you guys eat dinner while watching Sonic 2?
Sure did.
We did.
In fact, we were kind of forced into it more even a little bit than I anticipated because they were kind of slow. It took them a good long time to bring what we had ordered. I feel like we were like
second act.
I feel like maybe 20 minutes in. I feel like
yeah.
Okay. I feel like we were pretty close to last in the theater, which is weird because we got there pretty early. Like we could have. I feel like we should have been, relatively quickly served. But I don't know. Staff shortages everywhere, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
I had a good time. Honestly, I thought the theater and the seating and everything was good, except for part of it was the reason that we went to that theater was because there's an ArcLight, which anybody familiar with Los Angeles would know. ArcLight's a kind of a local chain that's historically a very nice theater chain. They do really good work, and the ArcLight Hollywood, and this was kind of big news that at least reached me. I don't know if it reached everybody or if anybody cared, but ArcLight Hollywood closed permanently. Well, maybe a year ago at this point. And I heard that and I was really sad about it. It was ArcLight Hollywood. If you get a chance to Google it, maybe Google image search ArcLight Hollywood. It was kind of a cool theater because it had a big dome and just very, very neat theater in Hollywood, right on Hollywood Boulevard, I think on Hollywood Boulevard. And it's like Hollywood and Vine. And but the ArcLight that was right across from our hotel was also permanently closed. And then I started looking, it seems to me like the entire ArcLight chain is just dead. And that got me into some other stuff.
Sad.
I did a masterclass where I was talking about storytelling, and I recommended the Samuel French Bookstore in Los Angeles, which historically has carried a bunch of scripts and screenplays and stage plays and things like that, which I thought would be a cool thing for people if they were sticking around LA. It'd be a cool bookstore to just sort of peruse. And that is also permanently closed, and I think that was within the last couple months. But it was kind of depressing a little bit. There's a lot of stuff that's closed, and a lot of things that I was looking for explicitly while I was there, it was permanently closed. I mean, it doesn't seem like a healthy city to me, even though, I had a good time at the hotel and all that stuff seemed like it was, pretty much normal for the most part. There was a lot in Los Angeles in general that is just shuttered at this point, which it's pretty depressing.
Sad state of affairs.
Yeah. But the other thing I learned, of course, going with Jen to Sonic 2 was that she had not seen Sonic 1. And then as we were just talking before the show, Paul, you also hadn't seen Sonic 1. So
no,
I would like to start
Did not.
this episode a little bit getting both of your takes on this, because I have seen Sonic 1. I liked it. And I don't know. I kind of felt like we were all going in with the same information, and we really weren't. So I'm curious. I'm curious as to your experiences.
Well, I mean, I was, as stated, I had not seen the first movie. I still have not seen the first movie. So I think there was a little bit of background, a little bit of context that I was missing right up front. But that said, it is not a strict requirement for you to have seen the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie in order to enjoy the second Sonic the Hedgehog movie, because I actually did have a good time at this movie. So
Good. Paul?
No, I mean, I'd have some history with the video game, so I knew the characters going in, who they were, what their roles were. So no, I did not miss anything from Sonic 1. But no, I really enjoyed this movie. It was fun. It's better than it has any right to be. And I'm not surprised it's just absolutely killing the box office right now. I'm not surprised. No. It's one of those movies that has a little bit something for everyone, and parents could take their kids to the movies, but also it's not weird if you as a grown-up go to this movie either. So yeah. It's one of those that I think is going to make a ton of money, and they're going to keep making more of these. And as long as they keep making good ones, they're going to keep making more of them. So at least it's good for now.
So there were a couple things for me. First of all, my brother and I were we were Sega people. I mean, it took us a long time to convince my parents to get us a video game system of any kind. Sega Genesis was that system for us. And we played Sonic religiously for a long time. And so we used to fight over who got to play Sonic 1, because Sonic 1 is a single player game. And then when Sonic 2 came out and you could play 2-player, I would always play Tails and my brother would always play Sonic. And then by the time you get like Sonic and Knuckles and all that kind of stuff, like we were like fully in. So I'm like very much in line with all that kind of stuff. The other thing I was going to say, speaking of like knowing the characters going in, we had Jen and I had a couple of moms who had 2 little kids that were sitting right next to me, like on my left side. And they were, first of all, teaching their kids very bad movie theater etiquette, because they were literally talking to their kids the entire movie, like introducing things and like, oh yeah, look, it's this, look, it's that, look, it's this. And it's like, hey moms, your kids aren't being annoying. You're being annoying, and you're teaching your kids that it's cool to be annoying. So don't do that. But one of the funniest moments to me was the moment when Knuckles like makes his appearance, which is a pretty big entrance, right? Like it's a very powerful, like he steps through a portal and tonk, tonk, wah, hey, it's Knuckles, right? She goes, look, it's Tails. I was like, oh no, Mom, you're ruining the movie and you're terrible at the same time. So it was just kind of ridiculous.
California sounds terrible.
Yeah, no, California is not my favorite place to be anymore. But yeah,
that's not exclusive to California.
It's not. But there was an awful lot of chatter and sort of not great movie theater etiquette at this theater. But I've that's kind of been my experience going back to theaters. I mean, it was always the experience before too, to some extent, but like, I really do think that the last 2 years of people just watching movies in their living rooms has not done us any favors in terms of like understanding that you can't just talk through an entire movie or like use your phone or, text or make phone calls and stuff, which people do. So I don't know. We'll see if that gets corrected or if there's, we're going to go through sort of a darker period for a little while of people being terrible at movies. But
I do wonder with that, because obviously a lot of ink has been spilled, a lot of characters been typed about the death of movie theaters. Yep. And I feel like it's a little bit early for that. I think this movie kind of shows, and Spider-Man, people want to be in the theater.
Yeah.
But increasingly, the studios are going to want to do direct. I mean, it's just kind of writings on the wall. So what are theaters going to do to differentiate themselves from the at-home viewing experience? And I feel like it has to be what the Alamo Drafthouse has done, which is you talk, you're out.
Yeah, I kind of feel like they should see that, really, because that is, I mean, there's an interesting sort of fine line to me, because you want the crowd to be engaged and you want them to feel comfortable expressing emotion, right? You want the gasps and the tears and the claps and like just the general applause and laughter and all that kind of stuff, right? But you also don't want somebody just literally talking through the entire movie, sort of ruining it for everybody. So, I think the Drafthouse has done a pretty good job of sort of policing the disruptive behavior while allowing like the experience to come through, because that is really what going to the cinema is about for me. It's the shared sort of community experience of like, everybody. And I mean, God, man, when you saw, like in Avengers Endgame, when Falcon is like on the left, man, like the entire theater just explodes. There is nothing like that you can get at home. It's just not, it's not an experience you can replicate anywhere else other than with a large crowd. And that kind of shared experience is really cool. It's the thing that I love the most probably about going to movies. And but it can be ruined by people just being obnoxious the entire time. So yeah, I kind of hope they go that direction, but we'll see, man. I think there's a lot that people need to figure out in that industry, and there's going to be
it's going to be interesting.
Probably a lot of change. But anyway, let's talk about Sonic 2. So it opens with Jim. I'll go through the plot a little bit. Basically, like at the end of Sonic 1, for those who haven't seen it, Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik, gets banished to a mushroom world. Basically, Sonic's rings can open portals to different planets inside this universe, and he opens one to Mushroom World, sort of kicks Jim Carrey's character through it, and then he ends up stranded on this planet. But he is a super genius, so he has spent the last several months with one quill from Sonic, which is imbued with some amount of Sonic's superpowers. And he has, cobbled together some kind of contraption that allows him to send out a beacon via mushrooms. All of this is now mushroom technology, which is pretty ridiculous. But when he sends out the beacon, Knuckles and his little crew of people show up, hoping to find Sonic, which he identifies as sort of the energy signature of an enemy. And so he and Jen and Dr. Robotnik form kind of an alliance and figure out how to get back to Earth. And one of the things I kind of like about this intro is that, honestly, it's pretty efficient. Like it doesn't take very long for us to get into the meat of that part of the plot, certainly. But then, for me, at least, I feel like the movie slows down a lot for the next 15, 20 minutes. And I actually think it's kind of, this is probably the biggest criticism I have of the movie is weirdly the first act feels like the weakest. I think the second and third acts get a lot better, but the first act, we reintroduce Sonic. He's out there saving, stopping a bank robbery, but doing it so haphazardly that he actually causes a lot of property damage and puts other people in danger. That becomes kind of the main theme is like, it's great to be a hero and to want to be a hero, but you actually have to do good stuff and not just put other people in danger being a hero. So otherwise you're not being heroic. You're actually just hurting people or potentially hurting people. So I kind of want to talk about that as like a core theme a little bit. But anyway, the rest of the movie is, Robotnik comes back, Knuckles is there, and it's like full on nostalgia for me. It's Sonic and Tails and Knuckles and giant Robotnik robots, and I mean the whole deal. You know, I mean they really go for it. So I don't know, Paul, like, what were your sort of broader thoughts on like the story, and how did you kind of feel about the, you know, just in a more in-depth way, like how'd you feel about it?
This was, so the first Sonic movie, which I hadn't seen, but if you guys remember back, and if you think back before the end times, it was the outrage of the day was the first reveal of Sonic, which was nightmare fuel. And the studio actually listened to the outcry of the fans and totally changed the look of the rodent. And since then, this franchise,
are not rodents, Paul.
Well, I'm sorry. What are they?
They are, gosh, now I'm going to have to look it up now, because I feel like I should know this as a proud hedgehog owner.
Marmots, varmint, marsupial.
No, they're not. No, actually, although echidnas are marsupials, incidentally.
The more you know.
The more you know.
Mm-hmm.
But no, they are. Hang on, I'll do this. They're. See, that's why I can't remember this, because it's so complicated. But it's Arena Ciidae. Arena Ciidae.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're more like they're moles. They're in the same family as like moles and shrews and stuff.
Moles and shrews. Yeah. Interesting. And so it's a big mole podcast today. That took a turn. This is what people come for the podcast for.
Yeah.
You know, they come for the Sonic, but stay for the mole talk.
Scientific classification of hedgehogs.
Hey, you know, look, I own a hedgehog.
Oh.
She's my second hedgehog at this point.
You know hedgehogs.
I do know hedgehogs. They, by the way, when we bought our first hedgehog, like our breeder said, she was like, "What are you going to name him?" And then she paused and she was like, "Do not name him Sonic," because apparently, unsurprisingly, a lot of people who get hedgehogs just immediately go that route, and they shouldn't. It's very, very unoriginal. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
But anyway, so the whole franchise has with that been really catered. I don't want to say catering, because that kind of believes weird connotation, but they've actually leaned into the lore of Sonic, which who knew there was lore? Yeah. They've leaned into what the fans actually want to see on screen.
Totally.
And it's surprising it's working. Yeah. And like I said earlier, this movie it's way better than it has any business to being. The parts with the humans, for me, I don't care.
They're definitely the weakest parts, for sure.
Yeah.
And which is surprising, because this is just a CGI fest. You got Morbius on the other hand, where I guess Jared Leto is technically the actor, but it's just CGI fest, and like it's just bereft of any kind of anything. But this actually has like you can actually feel some empathy for characters and stuff like that. And I mean, it's fun. Like it's just a good time. Pretty simple, straightforward story, and pretty decent animation. There's really nothing to nitpick at it. I'd be interested to see where they go ongoing, because the humans were to take a backseat. Are they going to keep like? Yeah. I didn't watch. Obviously, I didn't see the first movie, so like James Marsden's character, I don't care.
James Marsden's character in the first movie has a bigger role, but it's also, I mean, it's a very dad role in the same way. I like the first movie a lot. It's really sweet, and a lot of it is sort of about this idea that they sort of like James Marsden's character in the first movie actually does have kind of an arc. He's a small town cop or sheriff, actually. I think he is the sheriff even in the first movie, where he kind of doesn't want to be. He wants to be, and this is sort of parallel to the overall Sonic thing, I think, which is like he wants to be a big city police officer, a big city like police captain even, because he feels that like this sort of small town and protecting the small town is like, it's like not beneath him in like a bad way, but it's like, it's not living up to his imagination of what being a hero cop means, right? He wants bigger stakes. And so when we meet him in the first movie, he's literally just like doing traffic patrol, watching cars go by with a radar gun, right? Which is, of course, a good gag for a hedgehog that goes, 700 miles an hour, whatever. So you've got that, but like he's bored by being this small town cop. And his arc really is sort of learning to appreciate the life that he has in the small town and appreciate the people that he's protecting in the small town, which is a nice little arc. But you're right, like it's way back on this one because now there are a lot more characters from the lore of Sonic the Hedgehog, right? Like again, Tails and Knuckles, and plus we get into some history of some of this stuff, like the Echidna tribe,
Gemstone,
and the Chaos Emeralds,
like stuff that I feel like most video game movies would just, it's like, oh, the normies cannot handle this. They can't. Sonic has a tribe. What are you talking about? No, he just runs fast. Right. But no, they leaned into it really hard. And it works.
But and to your point, I think that's all the stuff that works the most in the movie. And like bringing in things like if Tails came in, for example, there's a couple things about Tails. One, he is really young as a character, and he's a younger kid, and he really looks up to Sonic. If they had wrecked that in this movie, like if Tails had come in and be like a tough badass, kind of like whatever, like that wouldn't work, right? And it would make everybody mad because it's not Tails. Similarly, if he didn't have the sort of technical ability and create gadgets and have all these things, and that was honestly in one of the human moments, one of the best parts that involved people was the part where there's a section in there where James Marsden's wife and her sister are trying to rescue him. They're trying to rescue him. And they sort of stumble on Tails' backpack filled with gadgets, and they have no idea what they do. So they're doing all kinds of insane stuff with his gadgets. But like, if that wasn't taken into account, or if and actually, like you mentioned, Idris Elba, I think he's a kind of a great Knuckles, like you need somebody who's just really tough and kind of scary, and somebody who really doesn't have a sense of humor. And Idris Elba actually does obviously have a sense of humor, but he plays such a tough guy so well that like it works, it really works. And it's amazing to me how simple the formula is, right? Like there's no political preaching. There's no, sort of, this is 2022, like sort of creeping into the movie, and it all just takes the source material relatively seriously.
This was a movie made by people who understood the assignment. They knew exactly who their audience was, and they made a movie for them. And because they had that in mind, because they were so targeted on pleasing Sonic superfans, that it has a much broader appeal because it's a good story.
Yeah, just for them. And so I'll give a little spoiler warning for this. I kind of feel like it's a movie that I don't really feel like it matters if you spoil too much, but like because you kind of know what's going to happen, like regardless. But when we get to the end of the movie and Jim Carrey, Dr. Robotnik gets his hand on the Master Emerald, which is the big MacGuffin of the movie. Like they want to find this Master Emerald, which is it's funny. The funny thing is I actually never thought about it this way because it was long. Like I grew up with this and it was way before I read any Marvel comics or anything, but it's the Infinity Gauntlet. Right? Like it's literally the Infinity Gauntlet. I mean, it's funny to me because like my understanding of it was so detached from, knowing anything about Marvel, and it happened way earlier than I was aware of Thanos or any of that stuff. But it is basically a bunch of Chaos Emeralds, maybe 5 of them or 6 of them coming together, right, to be the Master Emerald, which is basically a source of unlimited power and can convert your thoughts into reality and that kind of thing. And so, of course, the big final battle is Dr. Robotnik gets it, and he gets the unlimited power that he's been seeking for a long time. And what's amazing to me about it is that, like, you know, you can think about all these other movies that have been made that have these sort of opportunities to really dive into something that the fans are going to want, and then goes a different direction. So say like the Josh Trank Fantastic Four, right? Fan Four Stick movie, right? Like, you have Doctor Doom, and all you want as a fan of Doctor Doom is to see him in his armor, and see him with all of the power that he's supposed to have, and do all this stuff. And then instead you get something that is just not even close to what that is. And what Sonic did that I loved, and honestly, I probably even turned to Jen at the time. I was like, oh my God, they're going to do it, which is a giant Robotnik robot, which looked like the giant Robotnik robots from the games. Which, if you do the math like studios often do, and I mean, they still do it. They used to do it all the time, where they're like, yeah, but that just looks really weird in real life. It looks really weird to do. It's like when Bryan Singer did X-Men, you know, all the studio notes were like, you got to put them in black leather because they can't have, you know, Cyclops can't be wearing blue spandex and have a weird, you know, yellow strap around his, like, you can't do any of that, right? You can't give Wolverine like his classic costume. But by not doing that, you're actually doing disservice to the fans in a lot of ways, and you're just doing disservice to the character, because that's part of what people have identified with them for so long. And I think in this case, just doing that, for me, it was like, oh, man, that's amazing, because I played those games a million times. And then the same thing is like when we get to Sonic gets his hand on the Emerald. Really, you know, spoiler, but the end is Super Sonic, which you get in Sonic 3. I think it's in Sonic and Knuckles. It might be in Sonic 2 as well. I'll have to go back and remind myself, but like where he turns bright yellow and he's glowing, he's basically Super Saiyan, you know, Goku version of Sonic, right? And like, that's awesome to me. I loved seeing that, just because that was just part of my childhood, right? Like, that was just such a...
Listeners, he was so delighted at the movie theater. Like, he was giddy.
Totally.
It was adorable.
Totally, because like they didn't have to, I mean, they didn't have to do that, right? Like, given the like so many movies that we've seen, and we can run through the list of video game movies, especially, right, that are just abysmal disappointments, right? The Tomb Raider movies, like especially the new Tomb Raider movie, you know, like a lot of the Resident Evil movies, you know, the most recent Mortal Kombat movie, or even the earlier Mortal Kombat. I have a little bit of a special place in my heart for Mortal Kombat 1 and 2, but you know, I mean, Rampage, right? Like, there are just so many movies that just get it wrong from video game source material, which I don't totally understand. I feel like you should be able to do that okay, but Uncharted, I mean, we just did a podcast recently on Uncharted, right? So to see one that just kind of nailed it for what it is, you know,
yeah,
it's kind of fun for me. And that doesn't mean everybody's going to love it. I mean, it's obviously not going to be a movie for everybody, and it's
like, this is not a film that's going to win a lot of awards.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, which is fine.
And that's fine.
But I mean, Rotten Tomatoes, take it for what it's worth, but 98% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Is that the audience score?
That's pretty high.
Is that the audience score?
That's audience score.
Ooh,
yeah, that's audience
score.
Pretty high. That is pretty high.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this, like I said earlier, this has something pretty much for everyone. Like, for me, I could see myself taking, if this movie came out in a little bit when the whole family's older, the whole family would go to, and I would feel comfortable doing that. Yeah. And I know, like, thinking back, that takes a lot. Like, there was some, you just always, as a parent, you always have to be very cognizant of what, just because it's a lot of stuff on TV right now that's very easily acceptable. And even stuff that you might trust just all of a sudden goes down a road that's just like, wait, this is for 5-year-olds. Why are we talking about this? And you don't have any of that stuff. So it's just they just did a fantastic. They just nailed it. That's
yeah. I mean, that's kind of how I felt, and also it kind of goes to like the movie's mostly pretty sweet. I mean, like the Sonic character is a very sweet character. He's a very innocent character, and in fact, like one of the things that's kind of nice about it is that the final lesson where his arc sort of concludes, right? Like his arc starts as, you know, I'm a superhero. Like I am able to go do all of these cool things and I'm going to help people. And then, you know, the theme, as kind of stated by James Marsden's character, is like, dude, you're not ready for this. Like you are not thinking about the consequences of your actions, and you are not taking responsibility for what you're doing. And you can see that in the opening sequence where he's reintroduced, because he's just like, there's bombs and he's just throwing them willy-nilly, like wherever. And like they're blowing up a garbage truck, and he blows up like the sewer lines and stuff. And I mean, it's great that he saved the bank truck and the guard in the bank, but he didn't think about what else he was doing.
Did he save the truck though?
Well, okay, not the truck,
because he took the truck apart.
He definitely didn't save the truck. The truck absolutely is not safe, but he saved the human beings inside the truck. But also he didn't even save the money, because the money all flew out. He flew out into the air, right? So he didn't actually care. He just wanted to be a hero. And what's great is that, like, as his arc kind of concludes, it is he actually has all this sort of unlimited power from having this emerald, and then he's like, and I think Knuckles says it right. Like I think Knuckles is like, the person you knew as Sonic is gone. Like he's now this super being, and say goodbye to your friend or whatever. And he just gives it up, and he's like, I'm not ready for this. I'm a kid, and I'd like to be a kid for a little while, and that's a, like, for me, like we talk about on this series, like bad lessons in especially kid shows a lot. And here's one that I actually feel like is a pretty good one.
Yeah. Like it is a heroic character doing things that are actually heroic, and I'm here for it. Like I'm 100% comfortable watching this with my kids, and like it's okay. And also for those of you who are mad at me for my Arcane thing, note that he's not perfect. He's not he's a very good character, but he's not perfect, and he has a lot to learn. He is. And that's where, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from writing a morally good character that has growth potential. There it is. Boom. Yep. There's an example. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I assume people will go see it with kids, and that'll hopefully be a little bit better of a lesson than most of the Marvel stuff that we've seen lately. I'm getting advertised Multiverse of Madness pretty hard right now, and it's like all. I could not Wanda. Be less excited about that movie. At this point, I just feel like with Marvel, they're going to be leaning so heavily into like crossover nostalgia, right? Like I don't know what they're going to do, but I mean, it just seems like we're going to be drawing on different people from different franchises and things like that. It wouldn't surprise me if they figured out a way to bring in, Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen and
it's gonna be like a B tier No Way Home.
Yeah, probably
not like a B tier on actors, but like a B tier. I don't think this movie's gonna be particularly that good.
Yeah,
for Marvel, at this point they gotta. I just don't go in blindly trusting them like I did.
Yeah,
5 years ago. I lost a lot of trust, and the whole Wanda stuff still really irks me.
And she seems to be like the core of the story here. So
I don't know, unless they make her the bad guy. Then
there was like a teaser or a trailer where she sort of complained. She was like, "Oh, you change reality and like everybody praises you, but I do one little thing and people are upset with me." And it's like, well, you enslaved a town. So maybe people
she a
should be
stand-in?
upset with you.
Is she a stand-in for China?
Oh,
If
Oh
yeah.
my.
I mean, that's been, I mean, obviously like Disney has been, you know, sort of in the news a lot lately. And there's just been a lot of this discussion about the, you know, the bill in Florida and everything else. And they're, you know, quote, taking a stand about, you know, LGBTQ politics and whatnot. But it's just, it's so fake to me, because here they are,
Yeah.
while they're doing that, they're trying desperately to get into markets in China and India and Saudi Arabia and other places. And it's just like, dude, those places are dramatically worse for these things. And you aren't standing up to the Chinese government. You aren't standing up to the Indian government about their levels of like direct censorship. You know, you're not saying a word to them about that. Right.
Nope.
And I don't know. I find Disney to be kind of crass at this point. Like, and I mean, maybe I always should have to some extent, but like, I find the hypocrisy to be pretty glaring. And
Yeah.
I think I would find
I
would find it a lot less glaring if they just said like, oh, look, we're just a business. We're trying to make money. We're trying to do it in different places. It's tough. Like, our personal feelings, like, you know, they affect things, but they're not, at the end of the day, like, they're not the most important thing, right? I would actually have much more respect for them if they just did that.
And that's pretty much what they had previously historically done.
Yeah.
Is we're here to make money. We're here to get people in these parks. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And now they've done it themselves.
Yeah.
It's just, I just don't understand the impetus for it. You're just going to make somebody mad.
Yeah.
So,
well,
as a business, why?
Yeah, and of course, I mean, you're not going to, the more you do it, the more you put those other things at odds with each other, right? Like, you're trying to have this great relationship with the Chinese government, and then at the same time, you're trying to have an antagonistic relationship with the Florida government. Like, it's like a weird, it's like a really weird.
Yeah, the Florida government that literally saved your theme park. Business.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a weird strategy to take, and it just all feels like it's driven by, well, one, I think the bigger thing for them is probably that it's being driven partly by their own employees, which is tricky.
Well, there is that.
But it's also otherwise just feels like it's always driven by Twitter. You know, it's just like a handful of like lunatics on Twitter who just, you know, are extremely vocal. And that's it. You know, I don't know. It's weird. A lot of people for the last few years have talked to me about, you know, the manga and anime and that kind of stuff, and like just Japanese entertainment in general versus American entertainment. And one of the things that just keeps coming up is like, they just haven't gone down that road at all. Like, they're still really constantly about, you know, telling a story that's just self-contained as the story. And I mean, obviously there's allegorical themes and there's things that connect to modern life and everything else, but you don't feel the sense of preachiness, and you don't see the companies sort of insulting their audiences. Right. And this really does, I don't know. It's interesting to me because you've got No Way Home, which was produced primarily by Sony, it's a Japanese company. And then now you've got Sonic the Hedgehog, which is being produced by essentially Sega's own entertainment division, which is kind of wild that we have Capcom and Sega and you know, Bandai and like all of these groups that do this. But yeah, I mean, I just sort of get that sense. Like, if I'm watching stuff that's being produced by Japanese companies, like, they're not really doing what a lot of American entertainment companies are doing. So I'm kind of curious about that and kind of want to watch that, see where it goes. But anyway, let's do final thoughts on Sonic the Hedgehog. Jen, why don't you start?
I really liked this movie a lot more than I thought I would. I did not have much by way of high expectations going into it. I joked around that I I had to skip a thing at this work conference because I needed to go see Sonic the Hedgehog 2 because I am a serious professional who does serious things. But I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. The first act was a little bit of a mess.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, it is only getting 3/4 of a star from me. But it's a lot of fun.
Fair. Paul?
Yeah, I'd echo a lot of the same things that Jen said. It was a lot of fun. It's definitely one of those movies that you can rewatch multiple times. So it's just a good thing to have. I kind of struggle with what to give this one. I think by not putting it its own thing, I would give it a star because it's very good for what it is, which is a video game, basically cartoon movie.
Yeah.
And I'm excited there's going to be Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and apparently there's going to be a Netflix series, which probably is going to suck, but
yeah, not sure about that.
It'll be interesting, but I don't know if they're going to. Jim Carrey has announced that Sonic 2 was his swan song, so I don't know if they're going to get him to come back for Sonic 3. So that's going to be interesting because he's played a huge role in the first 2 Sonic movies. So yeah. I think that's the biggest question mark going forward for myself.
So I heard about that. We didn't really talk about Jim Carrey that much in this, by the way. This is one of my favorite Jim Carrey performances. This one and the first one are some of my favorite Jim Carrey performances in years.
He was outstanding.
And it really is because it's like a return to form for Jim Carrey. It's like watching Ace Ventura or, like Dumb and Dumber, or like one of the really early Jim Carrey breakout hits, right? And I like a lot of his dramatic acting. I think he does well when he's in those roles as well. But like seeing Jim Carrey do like slapstick and physical comedy and things that really only he can do, like there's just nobody who's ever done this kind of stuff better than Jim Carrey. And to watch him get to do that, if this is his last movie, I'm fine with it. Like that's perfectly okay to me. But I will say Sonic the Hedgehog 2 does have like a post-credits sequence that like very strongly hints that Robotnik will be back. So we will see. Yeah. We will see what they do.
I mean, this is making a ton of money, and at some point you just you back that truck up to Jim Carrey's house. Like, how much do you want?
Yeah. I mean, it does seem like he's had fun playing this role, so maybe he would do one more. But I mean, that is kind of a risk of Sonic because there aren't that many other villains. Like Robotnik is the primary, that's sort of the primary antagonist. But you've got other variations of it, right? Like you've got actual like the Eggman version, which was trying to like turn animals into robots. And we haven't seen a character do that yet. So maybe they could split that off and make it a different one. And I won't spoil this because this is a post-credits thing. They did introduce another character that could be the villain all by himself. So
that is true.
We will see. But I would give this, I think I'll give this a full star. I agree with Jen. I think the first act has some serious problems. So I think it's not by any stretch a perfect movie. But I do feel like it's a movie that I would rewatch. And I feel like it's a movie that like I would sort of, if I'm looking for like a fun family movie, I think this and Sonic 1, like when my niece comes to visit around Christmas, I'm pretty sure I will see if they want to watch that because I think they would have a good time. And I know that my brother, who played this game with me forever, will have a good time. So I'll leave it at that. But for everybody who is a Patreon or Subscribestar supporter, and by the way, if you're not, check us out at patreon.com/outoframeshow or subscribestar.com/outoframeshow. Stick around. We're going to do, we've got another episode ready for you in a little bit. So check that out. For everybody who is not a subscriber, please note that we do bonus content and we also will give you access to a special channel in our Discord server and you get some free swag. And it's a bunch of cool stuff and barrier to entry is extremely low. If you like Out of Frame, please consider sending us, just like $1 a month. It'd be very cool. So thank you very much for listening. And we'll see you next time.